Episode 3, The Chavín, Prophets of the Highlands approximately 900 BCE. From your series Whispers of the Ancients, this episode will journey deep into the misty highlands of the Peruvian Andes, where sacred temples carved with jaguars and serpents whisper ancient messages. The Chavín civilization, one of South America's earliest and most enigmatic cultures, left behind a legacy of spiritual transformation, intricate stonework, and mysterious rituals. Segment 1AW, Whisper Through the Mist. Shh, listen again. Can you feel it? A breath rising through the high mountain valleys of Peru, a whisper hidden in the stones, a memory etched in temples older than the Incas, older than the empire that came after, and long before the world remembered their name. This is the voice of the Chavín, a people who saw the world not through kings and conquest, but through transformation and vision. Welcome to Whispers of the Ancients. This is Episode 3, The Chavín, Prophets of the Highlands. Segment 2, Journey to the Temple of Chavín de Huántar. Our journey begins high in the Andes, where two rivers meet, the Mosna and the Huachexa. Nestled between cliffs and clouds lies a place of mystery, a temple complex carved with cryptic symbols, eyes that watch, fangs that glint, spirals, serpents and snarling gods of stone. This is Chavín de Huántar, the sacred heart of the Chavín world, built over 2,500 years ago, yet still pulsing with ancient energy. To step here is to step between worlds, between light and shadow, human and animal, spirit and matter. Segment 3, The Jaguar, the Shaman and the Vision. Who were the Chavín? They left no grand armies, no empire to stretch across continents, no tales of kings etched in gold. What they left was something deeper, a vision. Their world was not ruled by swords, but by symbols. To the Chavín, the jaguar was no ordinary beast. It was a guardian, a god, a form to be become through sacred trance and ritual. Shamans, spiritual leaders, would undergo transformation, not metaphorically, but spiritually. They believed they became jaguar, serpent, condor, channeling power from the natural world into divine action. These rituals were not gentle affairs. They involved music, fasting, the use of psychoactive plants, and the haunting call of San Pedro. Cactus, a hallucinogen opening doors between worlds. To enter the Chavín temple was to enter the unknown. Dark tunnels, echoing chambers, flickering. Torches, sounds engineered to disorient, to elevate the senses, and at the heart of it all, a god. Segment 4, The Lanzan, face of the Chavín deity. Buried deep inside the old temple stands the Lanzan, a granite monolith nearly 15 feet tall, carved with a fierce god, fangs, claws, wild eyes spiraling into infinity. One face, two directions. One body, many meanings. Was it a god of agriculture? A lord of the underworld? A mirror of the cosmos? To the Chavín, it was all of these and more. The Lanzan was not meant to be understood. It was meant to be felt. To experience it was to surrender identity, to dissolve ego, to awaken to something ancient, primal, divine. This was the power of Chavín, not to conquer lands but to conquer the mind. Segment 5, Sound, Stone and Sacred Flow. The Chavín were masters of sensory engineering. Their temples were not just built, they were designed to transform. Underground water channels amplified rushing sounds. Musicians played pututu, conch shell, trumpets creating eerie reverberations deep in the stone passageways. These weren't mere performances, they were spiritual orchestrations, a choreography of sight, sound and mind. Pilgrims would arrive from distant lands, led through narrow tunnels in near darkness, eyes blind, ears flooded, until suddenly a chamber, light, and the face of the god staring back. It was not belief that bound the Chavín world. It was experience. Segment 6, A Culture Beyond Borders. The Chavín didn't build cities. They weren't an empire, not in the traditional sense, yet their influence rippled across the Andes, from the coast to the mountains, across valleys and villages. How? Through pilgrimage, through art and faith. Stone carvings in distant regions reflect Chavín style. Artifacts of obsidian, shells, and gold traded across great distances. Ideas traveled faster than armies, and Chavín ideas were powerful. They were visionaries of unity, using sacred spaces, shared symbols, and mythic storytelling to weave a cultural fabric that would outlast them. Segment 7. Symbols of a cosmic order. Look at its carvings, the interwoven forms, the animal hybrids, the spiral eyes. What do you see? A jaguar, an eagle, a human face split by divine energy? In the Chavín world, these were not separate. They were parts of a greater whole. Their art was not meant to be realistic, it was transformational. An eye might be a claw, a mouth could be a serpent, a head, both human and god. The Chavín created tensegrity, visual tension in art, forcing the viewer to question form, identity, and truth. These symbols weren't just decoration, they were blueprints of the cosmos. Segment 8. Priesthood and power. At the heart of Chavín society stood its priesthood, powerful figures who guided spiritual transformation and cultural unity. They were astronomers, architects, alchemists of belief, interpreters of the divine and custodians of secrets. Through controlled ceremonies and visionary experiences, they shaped perception, directed thought, and maintained social order. There were no armies, no vast bureaucracy, but there was power, wielded through knowledge, experience, and all. The priests were not rulers in name, but in spirit. They governed everything. Segment 9. The hallucinogenic connection. Among the most intriguing aspects of Chavín culture was its relationship with hallucinogenic plants, most notably the San Pedro cactus, containing the psychoactive compound mescaline. San Pedro was used to induce visionary states, but not for escape, for transformation. In sacred rituals under the guidance of priests, pilgrims and initiates would consume the cactus, enter altered consciousness, and confront their gods within. These were not solitary experiences. They were engineered events. The temple architecture, the soundscape, the flicker of flame on polished stone, all carefully aligned to guide the journey. This was a culture of controlled chaos where disorder led to divine clarity. Segment 10. Trade, unity, and the web of influence. Despite lacking large cities, the Chavín culture was far from isolated. Artifacts found across hundreds of miles, from the coastal deserts to the jungle edge, bear the mark of Chavín style and influence. Obsidian blades, marine shells, gold jewelry, and textiles traveled through the mountains via early trade networks. But what they truly traded was belief. Pilgrimage routes funneled people to Chavín de Huántar, creating a shared ritual center for disparate groups. This was unity without uniformity, a civilization of influence, not imposition. The Chavín model, spiritual centralization over political domination, would echo in future Andean societies. Segment 11. Engineering the unknown. How did they build it? The Chavín temple complex is a marvel of pre-Inca engineering. Massive stone blocks, intricately carved drainage systems, and subterranean galleries, all without metal tools or wheeled transport. Some stones weigh multiple tons, moved across mountainous terrain and precisely fitted without mortar. Underground canals managed storm water and likely enhanced acoustics within ritual spaces. Every design element, from layout to drainage to acoustics, served both a functional and spiritual purpose. To walk the corridors was to descend into meaning, a layered journey of initiation, sensory overload, and symbolic rebirth. Segment 12. Animal deities and the fusion of forms. The Chavín pantheon was fluid, zoomorphic, and deeply symbolic. Rather than personify their gods in human form, they honored animal qualities: the jaguar, power, transformation, predation; the condor, vision, sky, messenger of the gods; the serpent, wisdom, earth energy, rebirth. Their gods were composites, part animal, part human, part spirit. This visual language wasn't random. It taught that all beings were interconnected, and that divinity could wear many faces. The Chavín didn't just worship their gods, they became them. Segment 13. The decline of Chavín. Around 100 BCE, the Chavín cultural center began to wane. We do not know why. Perhaps shifting trade routes, environmental change, or the rise of new regional powers led to decline. But even as the temple's influence faded, its spiritual blueprint lived on. In later civilizations, The Moqui, the Nazca, the Inca, we see echoes of Chavín form and faith. They had started a fire, one that would burn through Andean history. Segment 14, Legacy of the Visionaries. The Chavín were not empire builders, they were mind shapers. Their art spoke in riddles, their temples pulsed with engineered wonder. Their gods asked you not to bow, but to change. They remind us of a time when transformation was sacred, when the divine could be heard in thunder and seen in stone. They were the prophets of the Highlands, and their whispers still echo if you learn how to listen. Segment 15, Chavín de Huántar, Temple of Transformation. At the core of the Chavín world stood their most sacred site, Chavín de Huántar. Nestled between the Andes' converging rivers, this temple complex wasn't just a place of worship, it was a designed spiritual machine. Built with mind-bending precision, its structure aligned with astronomical events, marking solstices, equinoxes, and seasonal transitions. The galleries were dark, tight, and humid. Sound echoed unnaturally. Stone ducts beneath your feet carried the gurgle of water like whispers. From the underworld, every turn, every room, was engineered to unsettle the senses and disorient the self. Why? Because disorientation was initiation. You couldn't become more until you let go of who you were. Segment 16, the Lanzan, stone god of the Axis Mundi. Deep in the heart of Chavín de Huántar, hidden from natural light, stands the Lanzan, a towering, carved monolith over 15 feet tall. This wasn't just an idol, it was the cosmic pivot, the Axis Mundi, the center of the world. The Lanzan merges multiple beings, human, feline, serpent, bird. Its body twists impossibly, a visual paradox from every angle. It stares with wide, staring eyes and a fanged grin, terrifying, mesmerizing, eternal. Initiates were led, likely under trance, into the chamber, where they would come face to face with the god in darkness, in silence, in transformation. This moment was sacred and irreversible. Segment 17, acoustic architecture and sonic ritual. The Chavín were masters of sound, not just music, but acoustics. Their temples were designed to resonate. Priests could speak softly in one gallery, and their voice would thunder in another. They used shell trumpets, known as pugitas, to create eerie, otherworldly tones that bounced off walls and shook the body. These weren't random effects. They were intentional technologies of experience, used to guide, to unsettle, to awaken. Some archaeologists believe the acoustics were paired with hallucinogens to amplify altered states. Imagine, you are deep within the temple. Your senses are skewed. You hear the growl of jaguars, the wail of spirits, but nothing is there. Or is it? This was theater of the sacred, and the audience was you. Segment 18, the visionary artist priests. Every line in Chavín art tells a story, but only the trained eye could read it. Their artists were priests, and their priests were engineers of meaning. They mastered a technique known as contour rivalry, an optical illusion where a single image could be read multiple ways, depending on where you looked. What appears to be an eye becomes a mouth. What seems like hair unfolds into snakes.y. To train the mind, to teach that truth is layered, that gods and life can never be seen from a single point of view. Art wasn't aesthetic, it was philosophy carved in stone. Segment 19, the sacred dualities. Chavín culture thrived on duality, light and dark, highlands and lowlands, jaguar and serpent, male and female, order and chaos. Even their temples were divided, with upper platforms touching the sky, and underground galleries diving into the earth. This dualistic cosmology wasn't about conflict, it was about balance. The Chavín didn't fear contradiction. They embraced it. They saw the universe as a woven tapestry of opposites, and their role was to maintain the tension. Their philosophy is as relevant today as it was then. Nothing is just one thing. To see clearly, you must see both. Segment 20, Pilgrimage and the Spread of Belief. Chavín de Huántar was not just a local sanctuary. It was the spiritual capital of a much larger world. People journeyed hundreds of miles, crossing mountains, valleys, and deserts to reach its sacred stone gates. And when they returned home, they carried more than goods. They brought symbols, ideas, architecture, language. belief systems that reshaped their local cultures from faraway valleys to distant coasts. The Chavín style spread like wildfire. This wasn't an empire of conquest, but of conversion through awe. They didn't build armies. They built visions. Segment 21. The role of shamans in Chavín society. In Chavín society, shamans were not only spiritual leaders, they were scientists, healers, visionaries, and gatekeepers of divine knowledge. They prepared elaborate ceremonies, often involving sacred plants like San Pedro cactus, known for its hallucinogenic properties. Consumed in ritual, it opened the inner eye. It blurred the lines between self and God, between now and forever. Under the influence, shamans channeled jaguar spirits. They guided the faithful through realms both unseen and eternal. They translated chaos into vision. These weren't just drug-induced dreams. They were sacred revelations, tools to heal bodies, settle disputes, and understand the will of the cosmos. The Chavín saw their priests not as above the people, but as bridges between the human and the divine. Segment 22. Animal symbolism and sacred beasts. To understand Chavín thought, you must speak the language of animals. The jaguar, fierce, elusive, and silent, represented strength, night, and divine power. The serpent, fluid, reborn through the shedding of its skin, was a symbol of fertility, medicine, and transformation. The condor, soaring high above the Andes, was the eye of the heavens, messenger of the gods. These creatures were not just mythic, they were sacred blueprints. Their traits became ideals. Their forms were worn in jewelry, painted on pottery, and carved into temples. And in ritual, priests did not just speak of these animals. They became them. Through masks, costumes, and altered states, they blurred the lines between human and beast, between performer and power. Segment 23. Social structure and daily life. Though our focus often turns to Chavín's sacred heights, daily life below was equally intricate. Their society was stratified. Priests and elites lived closest to the temple, while artisans, traders, and farmers formed the foundation. Agriculture thrived on terracing and irrigation, ingenious adaptations to mountainous terrain. They grew maize, potatoes, quinoa, and raised llamas and guinea pigs. Craftspeople were highly valued. Textiles were woven with astounding complexity. Stone and ceramic artists expressed not just beauty, but cosmic law. Trade routes stretched far, linking them to the coast, the Amazon, and highland neighbors. This wasn't an isolated culture. It was a crossroads, a fusion point where ideas, goods, and beliefs flowed freely. Segment 24. Decline and dissolution. Low rumble, fading heartbeat, crumbling stone like ore. Great civilizations. The Chavín eventually fell silent, not through war or sudden disaster, but a gradual unraveling. Around 100 BCE, their influence began to wane. Why? No one knows for certain. Shifts in climate, earthquakes, the rise of competing religious centers, a loss of faith in the priest's visions, whatever the cause. Chavín de Huántar was eventually abandoned. The great voices of the jaguar priests faded, and the jungle slowly swallowed their temples. But even as their buildings crumbled, their ideas lived on. Their symbols, their art, their cosmology echoed forward into later Andean cultures like the Weri, the Tiwanaku, and the mighty Inca. Segment 25. The Chavín legacy. The Chavín are not household names. They left no empires, no grand armies, no golden cities. But what they did leave was deeper. They left a way of thinking, a spiritual philosophy grounded in unity and duality, in human transformation, in the sacred power of art and ritual. They showed that civilization is not just laws and roads, but belief systems that shape how people see themselves and the universe around them. Their architecture spoke to the stars. Their art captured visions from beyond, and their temples still whisper to those who are quiet enough to listen. Segment 26. Reflections at the temple threshold. So now, traveler, as we step away from the stone corridors of Chavín de Huántar, what stays with you? Is it the haunting eyes of the Lanzan? The melodies of forgotten priests echoing through dark tunnels? The understanding that our ancestors, long before Rome, Long before Athens were peering into the cosmos with stone, sound, and spirit, the Chavín were prophets of something larger. Not a kingdom, but a way of seeing, and now we carry that vision forward.